Alright, so I've decided to address the Trayvon Martin issue only because I've seen it become such a circus that I guess someone needs to say something. Um, so let's start with the basics here. How many people out there were with Trayvon and Zimmerman that night? Since I don't hear any resounding I was, I'm going to have to say that all of us are speculating. Okay, so regardless of what you've read, what you've seen, and everything that the media has presented to you, you weren't there that night. And judging from all of the information that has been released, Zimmerman did have injuries. I checked it out for myself. I looked up all the information. When this whole story first broke, I remember reading the initial story, and I mean when it first broke, it came out a long time ago. I remember reading the initial story and thinking, what a farce it was, and that this kid Trayvon had gotten a bad deal. So naturally, anytime I get interested in something, what I do is I do a thorough investigation. I don't latch onto something, a belief, right off the bat, because I realize by latching onto that belief, then it's going to make me far more prone to be manipulated by that belief. So the best thing that I could possibly do is actually do thorough research in regards to that. So what I did is I started researching Zimmerman. I started researching Trayvon. Zimmerman did have injuries that night. He was either defending himself or was in some form of a struggle. Any way you look at it, that happened. Okay. The only witness that really testified to it claimed that they saw Trayvon on top of Zimmerman attacking him. Okay. Then we also have the facts that, the media tried to paint Zimmerman up as a white guy. Okay, Zimmerman is Hispanic and Jewish. They tried to paint him up as a white guy, and then they tried to paint Trayvon up as a perpetual 12-year-old. They, for whatever reason, would always post a picture of him as a 12-year-old, but never release any other photos of him after that. As it turns out, Trayvon at 17 years old was very adult, very strong, okay, was in underground fight clubs, okay. He had been running around brandishing weapons. He actually took pictures, and then there was all sorts of stuff on Trayvon Martin's phone. These things are very real, okay. All these things lead into question the type of character that Trayvon may or may not have had. Okay? If you consider the fact that we weren't there that night, if you consider the fact that there were injuries to Zimmerman and that someone did end up dead, well, then you come to a conclusion that evidently some sort of communication between them broke down to the point where they ended up in a struggle. How it got there, I don't know. We do know that Zimmerman should have stood down when 9/11 told him to. We do know that Zimmerman was following Trayvon Martin. But I know at 17 years old, I was cocky at that time. So if some dude had followed me down, even if I was walking through his neighborhood, I probably would have been arrogant enough to have turned around and probably have punched him. Jumped on him. Started kicking his butt. And believe me, I know the mentality of a 17-year-old. Okay? I've been there. I've done it. And if you think that a 17-year-old cannot be dangerous, well, let me say this to you. At 17 years old, I was getting ready to go in and start training for professional fighting. Doing boxing, kickboxing, and then later on I started doing cage fighting, okay? I did bar bouncing, so I'd been in not a million obviously, exaggerated, but quite a few street brawls, and then I was also in quite a few bar brawls, and then on top of the training that I'd done for most of my life all the way up until that point, I was dangerous. Yes, I could present a threat. And if you're thinking that this kid who was in underground fight clubs, who was running around with weapons, and who was fully able to probably hurt Zimmerman, couldn't have hurt Zimmerman, you're wrong. Okay? Keep in mind that everything that you know about this case has been presented to you by all sorts of different types of media, all of which have brought you different sorts of slants to the story. Again, you weren't there. I want you to realize that maybe something else is thinking for you, that maybe something else is puppeteering your actions here. Okay, because the fact of the matter is I have not seen Americans actually rise to the occasion to riot for virtually anything aside from the Occupy movements, which, those weren't riots for the most part. But I haven't seen Americans do that in a long time. In other words, and Lisette had made this point earlier, you guys do know how to stand up and do something when the time comes, but it seems that you don't know how to pick your battles very well. Okay, what did you have invested in this case? What do you have invested in this? Do you realize that black on black crime is more prevalent than any white on black crime or black on white crime? Far more prevalent. Blacks are taking blacks out of the equation here. And there's virtually a peak when that happens. Okay? You got to look at things realistically and realize whom this benefits. If you running around, blocking up traffic, with you guys riding in the middle of the streets, aggressing other people, do you realize who this actually benefits? Okay? Just so you know, conveniently enough, during this whole Trayvon Martin thing when it first broke, that was when the UN was really prompting the U.S. for stricter gun control measures, especially, I believe, on foreign automatic weapons. That's what they were really going for at that time, and they're going for other things for sure. Okay? One day they are going to come for your guns. But an evolved civilization actually doesn't need them. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right now. They want you guys running around trying to pick up weapons. It gives them more of a reason to take them from you and put you in a place where you're more suitable. Let's look at it that way. There's something else going on here. And this has become a universal thing. Okay, so you guys have got to choose your choices carefully. If you can be manipulated so easily here, it's going to be very easy to fool you when greater times come. And you need to look around and see that things are changing. Things are moving quicker. It's becoming more dramatic down here. All right? Particles are being accelerated. Right now, there's something in your guys' or in the sky that 99.99999% of you aren't even aware of, and it sits up there. I'm not going to even say what it is because it's really not that important what it is. What is important is the choices that you make. Are you going to continue being reactive every single time that the media presents you something to react about? Okay, the other thing is why don't you react on the things that you should react about? Do you realize that the bankers stole trillions from you? Do you realize that your economy is completely, fundamentally changing because of that fact? Do you realize that they constantly use your money for wars and they slaughter people wholesale? Okay, war is money, war is business. Make no mistake, they're making cash. And they're funding it with your tax dollars. Do you say anything about it? Not usually. Okay, so while we scream about one murder in Florida, your money goes towards doing far worse in many places around the world. We have to start looking at the hypocrisy of the things that we choose or not to choose to support. It is a tragedy that Trayvon Martin died. And I can guarantee you neither Trayvon Martin nor Zimmerman wanted that moment to happen, and I guarantee you that they would probably do anything that they could to take it back. So while people threaten George Zimmerman's life, or whatever his name is, and his family's life, okay, if the man wasn't racist before, believe me, you're putting him on a fast track to it. You think about all the things that you guys are doing and all the negative energy you're sending towards, specifically towards individuals like this. Okay? He was protecting his neighborhood. He didn't racially profile him, and if it was a racial profile, I mean, I don't see how someone could really, truly racially profile someone very well in the dark with a hoodie on. Possibly, yes, he probably figured out that he was black. But I don't think that that was the reason why he was following him around. He wanted to know what that guy was doing in his neighborhood. And believe me, when me and my friends, because we go around walking all the time, when we go out, we'll walk through neighborhoods, and yeah, people will give us dirty looks too. Okay, I've been approached by cops for just walking around. So it does happen. And that's a fact of life. And sometimes people are going to get questioned. It depends on how that person reacts, whether the situation becomes a bad one, and I guarantee you that Trayvon Martin did not react well, which is the reason why the situation transpired. You know, for the people that are going around hurting others now, because some backlash has happened. There's been people killed because of this. There's been people beaten because of this stuff. Is this just your excuse to go out and create anarchy now at this point? Do what you wanted to do in the first place? Because I just don't see how one murder, basically one minority killing another minority, I have yet to see in the entire history of the United States, except for now, where that has become such an issue, especially when it's occurring right under your noses at alarming rates in select cities like Detroit and Chicago, okay? Los Angeles, places like that. It's all over the place, and there's no outrage. Why is there no outrage? Because it's not in the media. It could be your best friend. I've seen people just not even, you know, they didn't get upset, or they didn't go and march to the police station when cops shot their home up. Nothing happened. Oh, well, I guess he deserved it. No one ever did anything about it. Okay, cops right now are on a rampage all over the United States. They're blasting things up, they're kicking in doors, and they're doing whatever they want to do. Where's the outrage? They're killing all colors. As a matter of fact, I've seen them accelerate on white people recently. For real. Never thought I'd see the day, but they've really gotten aggressive on white people recently. They don't seem to care who, they'll just do it. Could be any moment, could be any second. And one of them that could just snap and decide that you're in their way for that day. I think that that's far more bothersome than one singular murder that happens in Florida with a minority killing another minority. Do I underestimate the value of murder? No. But at the same time, I think the rest of this country does. Okay? So, if you can get completely piped up and sent into a frenzy over something the media throws and shovels down your throat that you choose to watch, because I've watched people attach themselves to this tragedy as if they have something personally vested, as if they were Trayvon's next door neighbor, or as if they were related to him. This has nothing to do with you, and you made a very simple situation become far more complex than it needed to be. Ultimately, if you look at the way the law operates in this particular country, there's no way to convict the guy in the first place. And if there's no way to convict the guy in the first place because they can't find the evidence to do it, that doesn't give you the right to go around banging crap up, hurting one another, causing a disruption. The real tragedy here is that the people are manipulated over and over by the same thing over and over. And this is the real tragedy. Okay? You know that your media lies. You know that your politicians lie. You were shown in 9/11 that 9/11, with us attacking Iraq, we went on the false pretenses. We've been shown that they lied to us and told us that there were weapons of mass destruction. There were not. They said there were, but there were not. Okay? So we know that they lied to us. We know that they lied to us to create agendas. Okay? So if they're willing to lie to you here, what makes you think that you got the absolute truth in the Trayvon Martin scenario? Okay? And by the way, just so you know, we didn't even attack the right country when we invaded Iraq. It was supposedly Afghanistan. But yet we found ourselves in a war with Iraq. We dealt with Afghanistan later when everyone complained about it too much. Like, hey, why are you over here when you should be over there? And yet, we're in Iraq to this very day. There's no outrage. Lots of people have been killed. There was no reason for us to attack. Yet we're still out there, and we've murdered lots of civilians. How do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like rioting? Okay. We got virtually no proof that bin Laden had anything to do with 9/11. We pinned it on him. Okay, now we're in Afghanistan, and we're blowing things up out there too. Are you outraged? You got your country here, the administration that's actually harboring and funding terrorists, and these terrorists have taken over other countries and are disrupting entire sovereign nations and cells. Are you outraged? You've got oil pipelines bursting all over your country. Literally, your oil is being drained out right from underneath you, and then they're spewing it all over your landscape. Are you outraged? You've got core exit that has been dumped all over the Gulf of Mexico. Core exit, it's like acid put in there to eat up oil. Are you outraged? You've got Monsanto, which is creating any sort of genetic monstrosity and are feeding it to you. Every other country in the world has pretty much got them out, but you're eating it. Are you outraged? Okay? There's so many more things that you could be focusing your energy upon. Things that have much more actual social value. Because the more that they can polarize against each other, okay, the more that they can polarize you guys against each other, the easier it will be for them to wipe you up when you guys are all killing each other. Because they will have every excuse to come in and use whatever means necessary to put you away. Now, I just like to throw out warnings. And not so I can say I told you so later, but you guys are creating your own hells here. You're doing it to yourselves. You're creating your own hell. I want you to notice this, whatever this thing is back here that keeps revving up and then doesn't actually go anywhere. Listen to that. Happened when I started talking about this. So I want you to be very, very aware that something else is pulling your strings. You're being puppeteered. You're being played with. You're being tooled with. And you have to be able to wake up and see what's right in front of you. Okay? These emotions, this movement that's happening is not your own. It was designed. It was engineered. I'm going to give that to you. Love you with all my soul.